The Epic of Gilgamesh is long considered the earliest work of literature. A Sumerian poem that told the tale of King Gilgamesh was written on 12 tablets, dating back to 2100 BC. Several different tablets were discovered throughout the centuries, with the most complete version discovered in 1853. Over time, the various tablets have been combined into the complete Epic of Gilgamesh, as complete as we have it now anyway. It should also be noted that Gilgamesh was a true king of the Sumerian city of Uruk. Whether the rest of the tale is true is completely up to you. Like many other mythical heroes, Gilgamesh did not begin as the most virtuous of people. King of Uruk, Gilgamesh was a demigod, son of goddess Ninsun and the king Lugalbanda, and so was blessed with incredible strength and beauty. Gilgamesh was a heroic and brave king, yet the people of Uruk were not happy, for Gilgamesh was also gifted with a godly ego. He abused his power, challenging men to competitions of strength and cunning to embarrass them, as well as exercising his lord's right to sleep with young brides on their wedding nights. The people prayed to the gods for help, and the goddess of creation, Ororo, hears their words. To aid them, she creates Enkidu, a wild man with the strength to match that of Gilgamesh. Enkidu lives within the wilds, running alongside the animals of the forest. Soon, however, the shepherds and hunters begin to worry about this wild man who is bothering their herds and ruining their hunts. So, they ask their king to help them. Gilgamesh responds by sending a temple prostitute to seduce Enkidu and bring him to the city and teach him the ways of man. The harlot, Shamat, spends 6 days and 7 nights with Enkidu in the wilds. Afterwards, he is no longer a wild man and learns the ways of civilization. Shamat convinces him to move to the city with her, and he learns to be a shepherd and hunt the animals he once lived with. With Enkidu's arrival, Gilgamesh begins to have strange dreams. His mother speaks to him, telling him the dreams indicate that he shall meet a new lifelong friend. Returning to his not-so-kingly ways, Gilgamesh arrives at a wedding to exercise his lord's right. Enkidu is also in attendance at the wedding and stands in Gilgamesh's way, believing that his acts disgrace the sacred bonds of marriage. The two begin to fight, but Enkidu's strength matches that of Gilgamesh. It is not said how long the battle lasted, but one can assume it was a wedding brawl of mythic proportions. In the end, however, Gilgamesh is victorious. Standing over the defeated Enkidu, he decides to spare his life. The two become friends, and through this friendship, Gilgamesh learns mercy and humility and becomes a better king for it. As the years pass, Gilgamesh and Enkidu have become like brothers, rarely being away from each other's sides. However, as time passes, Gilgamesh becomes bored with the peaceful life of ruling Uruk. He wishes to make a name for himself, to become a legend for the history books. One day, he proposes a quest to travel to the sacred cedar forest, slay the demon Humbaba who guards it, and cut down some of the trees. But the cedar forest is the land of gods, and Enkidu doesn't think this is the best of ideas. Yet no one can convince Gilgamesh that this is a terrible idea, and Enkidu will not let his friend and brother travel on his own. So the two set forth. As they travel, Gilgamesh becomes plagued by nightmares. Terrible storms which brought forth fire-breathing thunderbirds, mountains toppling into the lands, and massive wild bulls. Each morning, he would awaken in a cold sweat, but Enkidu would tell him that these dreams were a good omen for their journey ahead, and were not an indication of the demon guarding the cedar forest. The two press onward, finally reaching the entrance to the cedar forest, and there they are confronted by Humbaba, the massive ogre-like demon guardian. Even with their combined strength, the battle lasts for hours. During a lull in the fight, Gilgamesh distracts the demon by offering his own sisters as wives, as long as the creature discards its armor. Now defenseless, Gilgamesh and Enkidu defeat the creature, who then begs for its life. Gilgamesh shows mercy, refusing to strike the demon down, despite Enkidu's warnings. The demon suddenly curses them, forcing Gilgamesh to destroy it. With the battle won, the two heroes cut down one of the massive trees that reside in the land of the gods. Victorious, the two return home. As more time passes, the two have become legends. The goddess of love and war, Ishtar, appears before Gilgamesh, making advances and offering him a place as her lover. But Gilgamesh knows the stories of how she treated her past lovers and rejects her. Anger swells within Ishtar, and she approaches her father, the sky god Anu, and demands that he send the bull of heaven to punish Gilgamesh for this slight against her. Should he refuse, she vows to raise an army of the dead to punish the world of man. With no choice, Anu sent the bull of heaven to the lands of Gilgamesh. Upon its arrival, the bull brought drought, famine, and plague to the people of Uruk. Seeing the people in distress, the two heroes once again stepped forth. Now they stood against the gods, though, without the aid of divine help. Still, the two great warriors were victorious against the bull, and peace was restored to the land. With the bull dead, they offer its heart as a sacrifice to the sun god Shamash. To add insult to injury, Enkidu took the hindquarter of the beast and throws it into the face of Ishtar. She was not happy. Uruk celebrated its heroes that night with food and drink for everyone. After finally retiring to his bedchambers, Enkidu is plagued by nightmares. He sees a council of the gods, who decide that with the death of the bull of heaven and the demon Humbaba, someone must be punished. To his horror, they decide that Enkidu should die for the sins against the gods. When he awakens, Enkidu curses those that brought him out of the wilds and led him to the life that he lives now. He begins to weaken, every day growing closer to death. With each day, he describes the horrors of the underworld that he saw. After Enkidu's death, Gilgamesh refuses once more to leave his brother's side. He orders the people to mourn for Enkidu and to erect statues of the hero. He doesn't allow him to be buried, instead staying by his side until maggots begin to pour from his mouth. More time passes, and Gilgamesh now fears death. He begins a quest to seek out the man named Utnapishtim and his wife, whom legends say were the only people to survive the great flood that destroyed mankind long ago and were given the gift of immortality by the gods themselves. It is said, though, that the two lived in a beautiful land in another world, a place called Dilmun. So Gilgamesh begins his quest, journeying far into the east in his search. Along the way, he is confronted by monstrous beasts, which stand no chance against his mighty strength. Finally, he arrives at the twin peaks of Mount Mashu, which arises at the end of the earth. Here, he finds a tunnel guarded by two massive human scorpions. The monsters guard the tunnel that allows the sun to rise from the other world. Gilgamesh convinces the guards to allow him to pass, since he is a demigod. Gilgamesh travels underneath the mountain along the road of the sun. He manages to escape the tunnels before the next day, and the sun catches up with him, burning him to a cinder. On the other side, Gilgamesh arrives in the Garden of the Gods, a place where it is said that the fruit that hangs from the trees are jewels. Here, he meets an alewife named Siduri, who points him to the ferryman, or Shinabi, who could help him cross the waters of the dead and reach the island where Utnapishtim and his wife lived. Searching for the Urshanabi, Gilgamesh sees him surrounded by stone giants. The hero leaps to his aid, destroying the creatures. It is only after that he learns the giants were actually the sacred stones that allowed the ferry to cross the waters. The only way to cross the water now is for Gilgamesh to cut 120 trees and use them as punting poles while using his clothes as a sail. After reaching the island, Gilgamesh meets Utnapishtim and tells him his story. He wishes to become immortal and avoid the fate of his brother Enkidu, but Utnapishtim tells him that it is not for a man to fight his fate, and without the fear of death, life would be futile and have no meaning. There would be no joy in anything. This angers Gilgamesh, and he wishes to know why Utnapishtim should deserve immortality and not him. What follows is the tale of the great flood and how the old man survived. When the great god Enlil saw what mankind had done to the earth, he sent a flood to destroy them all. But the great god of the water, Ea, saw this and warned Utnapishtim. He instructed him to build a great ship to load his family and the seeds of all living things. Utnapishtim did as he was instructed, despite the ridicule of the people around him. When the waters came, it destroyed everything except Utnapishtim and his family. The ship came to a rest on the tip of a mountain, and Utnapishtim sent out 3 birds to see if the waters were subsiding. Finally they did, and the survivors set about to make sacrifices to the gods. Enlil was angry that some of mankind had survived his flood, but he was convinced by Ea to make peace. So Enlil gifted Utnapishtim and his wife immortality and allowed them to live in the garden of the gods forever. At the end of his story, Utnapishtim offers Gilgamesh the chance for everlasting life. If he can stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights, he will grant him his wish. But the journey was long and hard, and Gilgamesh quickly grows tired and falls asleep. Once he awakens a week later, Utnapishtim tells him of his failure and exiles him from the island of Dilmun. As he prepares to leave, the wife of Utnapishtim asks her husband to take pity on the hero and all that he has done. They tell Gilgamesh of a plant that grows at the bottom of the ocean that when ingested can make him young again. Tying stones to his feet, Gilgamesh dips beneath the ocean waves and finds the plant. But when he returns to shore, he places it at his side while he rests. An old snake slithers by and eats the plant, immediately shedding its skin and becoming young again. Gilgamesh has now failed twice in his journey for everlasting life. Returning to Uruk, he is still hailed as a hero. As with all things, he grows old over time and eventually passes away. The people of Uruk mourn the loss of their hero king, for another like him will never live.